What feminism has taught the world, and taught me, about women. First, that they are intellectually and morally weak. Obviously, this isn't what feminists have said directly, except when they have, such as in the endless repetitions of the claim that there is such a thing as the patriarchy. That's the universal, invisible conspiracy in which men, a 49% minority of the population and 45% minority of the voting public, manage to keep women firmly under the boot heel of a male dominion. For domination of a majority by a minority, that dominated majority must obviously be mentally and morally weak in comparison to the minority dominating them. So I guess it must be true. Women are intellectually and morally weak. Women, I have also learned from feminism, are fundamentally incompetent and inferior to real adults. For women, a decision to have sex while drunk is rape. This means that unlike men, when women are drunk, they lose the capacity to make decisions, and any decisions that they do make while drunk are obviously the result of them being mentally overpowered because of their inferiority. If a man makes a decision to operate a motor vehicle while impaired by alcohol, he commits a crime. But because women are understood by the courts to be mentally less competent than real adults, their decisions are separate from legal consequence. Obviously, women must very soon be disallowed from driving cars drunk or sober because if they do, then their inability to make accountable decisions while drunk puts a lot of other motorists and pedestrians at grave risk. A drunken woman might even drive her car over a pedestrian who was another woman. That would be bad. But obviously, and as hard as it is to accept, women are clearly inferior to actual adults because they lack the adult capacity for personal accountability that normal people retain even after becoming intoxicated. Women, it also turns out, are cripples. There is a debate resurfacing in Canada and the UK over whether women should be afforded paid leave for a few days every month during their menstrual cycle. Dr. Gedis Gradzinskas, a professor of obstetrics and gynecology, suggested in the UK tabloid Daily Mail that monthly paid disability leave would boost women's motivation and productivity when they are in the workplace. When the CBC repeated this quote, they omitted the qualifying statement, when they are in the workplace, portraying the argument that monthly paid disability would increase productivity, period. Setting aside the depravity of the CBC editing a quote to change the meaning, the argument is still that women, due to their being periodically disabled, should be treated like a physical cripple, confined maybe to a wheelchair for a few days out of every 28. And if women, or women's advocates, or feminists insist that women really are physically or mentally handicapped and must be given a few days off each month of paid leave that nobody else gets, then what can we do but agree? Okay, women are cripples. Period. But women's inferiority to men doesn't end there. It's not a secret that women are the only human beings with legal reproductive self-determination. This is usually characterized as a woman's body, a woman's choice. The idea that because a baby is formed inside a woman's body, she must be the only person with any legal say in the matter. This is a standard argument of such impossible and depraved stupidity it boggles the mind. Nobody on either side of this debate is confused about how a pregnancy occurs. It happens when a man's gamete cells fertilize a woman's eggs, usually as a byproduct of sex. But this isn't a culture lacking either understanding or methods of control over a woman's fertility. Women control their own fertility using the pill, IUDs, diaphragms, implants, shots, tubal ligation, and a dozen other consumer technologies. And in addition to all of these practical methods that women enjoy, women also hold a monopoly on legal choices over continuation or termination of pregnancy. Who is in control? Is there some doubt? She is in control. So why does the Western world use the common phrase, "he got her pregnant," to describe a woman becoming pregnant? It is a choice in almost all cases, and it is her choice, not his. Sure, he can use a condom, but that does nothing to control his fertility, nor her fertility. A condom is only a physical container for semen. The decision to become pregnant is a woman's decision. The decision to remain pregnant also a woman's decision. So why is it he got her pregnant? Well, that is simple. Women are so mentally incompetent that despite having the only legal voice and the only practical and reversible fertility controlling technologies, they are still so totally and uselessly helpless that their own choices over reproduction are attributed to male agency. That's how totally ineffectual and feeble-minded women must be. And after listening to women and their advocates and feminists on the topic of reproduction, this is the only logical conclusion. So, feminists are right, and women must obviously be feeble-minded incompetents. And I could cite a nearly endless continuation of the examples from the political rhetoric of feminists, each of which would furnish continued evidence that women are inferior human beings. But isn't it tedious already? If we buy into any of the populist public rhetoric and narrative supposedly in advocacy of women, of elevating their rights, empowering them, and so on, if we buy into this well-worn political narrative, we must also believe that women are inferior in almost every conceivable way. If women are not retarded, incompetent, dim-witted, feeble-minded, and completely lacking in common sense, discernment, or basic self-actualization as people, then the public feminist narrative must be recognized as obviously absurd stupidity. But we, as a culture, follow obediently along with all of this rhetoric. And when some new innovation in the feminist narrative surfaces that in order for us to believe, we must lower our estimate of women's intelligence even further, all it usually takes is a few years of repetition before some high-profile figures begin parroting whatever new hardship has been trotted out. And as a culture, we go along with it. And in order to go along with it, we must also reduce our perception of women's adulthood and competence even further. I've been studying and responding to this public narrative for long enough that I am now convinced. Women are obviously totally and bottomlessly stupid, moronic, cowardly, amoral, helpless, and incompetent. I believe this is true because it has to be true. Or else, all that is publicly known about women's oppression in this cruel patriarchy must be discarded as a horrendously cynical lie, a lie used to subjugate both men and women for the financial benefit and the legal elevation of a small class of sociopathic criminals pretending to be victims.